Good morning. Good morning. We are combining the Time for All Ages and this meditation time. I was planning on playing if the youngins were here, but since they're not, you have to deal with it. We're talking today in a few minutes about the balance between the doing and the resting. And I found some words from poet Shellen Lubin. And it was interesting. It was two different pieces talking about both of these ideas. So first, I'm going to read these words to you. There is power in continuing to work, to strive, to serve, to love, to do good, to clean up from bad, to rest, to question, to try and find balance, even when the purpose is unclear, even when the value is murky, even when you can't see the path forward and there's no end in sight. There is power in effort. There is power in persistence. There is power in continuing on. Shellen also writes, rest, as beautiful and necessary a task as any. How else can we remember to breathe, to think, to shut out the world, to not think, to regain the strength to take on the world, to take in the world with all our senses, and to dream? So for a few minutes, just going to ask you to rest. If it helps you to close your eyes, do that. Probably familiar with this song. If you are, you can sing along, or you can just rest and receive the words. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be alright. So you don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Rise up this morning, a smile with the rising sun. 3 little birds pitch by my doorstep, singing sweet songs, a melody pure and true, saying, this is my message to you. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Saying don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Rise up this morning, a smile with the rising sun. 3 little birds pitch by my doorstep, singing sweet songs, a melody pure and true, saying, this is my message to you. Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. So you don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. One love, one heart, let's get together and feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright. Continue to breathe into this day. And please join us together in singing our meditation hymn. Hi again. As we begin, I would just like to ask if you would do me a favor and tell me what your emotional state was or is as you entered this building today. If you could put a word to your emotional state as you arrived, give me a word that describes how you come to this place. Tired. Tired. Hopeful. Distressed. Anticipation.
Sunday scaries.
Sunday scaries. Interesting. Come on up here. No, I'm kidding. Peaceful. Well, this is good because often when I do that, the news is really bad, all of it. And maybe we find one person who says, I'm optimistic, and then I say, let's glom onto them and suck the optimism right out of them. But the good thing is we can come here in any condition that we find ourselves and know that that is the version of ourselves that will be welcomed. We don't come here joyful, needing to be less joyful, and we don't need to hide when we're struggling. And so I've just been thinking about you and how you enter this place. And hopefully over the next 45 minutes that I'll be speaking, we will together find exactly what we need. So should I stay or should I go now? If I go, there will be trouble, and if I stay, it will be double. So come on and let me know, should I stay or should I go? The Clash asked this question in 1981, and we're still asking it today. Should I stay or should I go? So I want us to dwell on this question. And I'm not even meaning literally, though many of us are doing that as well now too. Should I stay or should I go? Trying to imagine if the unthinkable comes to pass here in a few months and where we could make a home somewhere else. As impossible and distressing as an idea as that might be. In June, I've shared with some of you, we are taking a family trip to London, and I'm strongly considering heading into one of those beautiful cathedrals and screaming sanctuary and seeing if that still works, seeing if I can stay. No, regarding the question is, should I stay or should I go? I'm talking about the smaller, internal, almost moment by moment decision of whether to be still or whether to be in motion, whether to be in the fray or in the quiet places, whether we should be doing more or whether it is the doing that is doing us damage. As we move through each day, we are surrounded by need, by pain. We are surrounded by things that break our hearts and scream for our attention and call us to move. Though some things merit our urgency and they should propel us into immediate action, we can't be in perpetual motion. We cannot respond to every emergency or what feels like one. That is simply not sustainable. And part of the fatigue that we feel is because we are trying to attend to everything, and so we end up overwhelmed. We end up reminded of how frustrating life can be. Many of us are finding out how unsustainable always being in motion is. I was speaking with a friend recently on the subject of identifying when you are nearing a place of burnout. And she was sharing with me some of the signs of burnout. And I said, well, I've reached that place about 7 years ago and about 5 times since then. I think decent people, I think all people, regardless of their politics or their religion, if they have working empathy, they've probably burned out more than a few times. And though we understand the massive need in the world, sometimes the most pressing need that we have is to stop and tend to our own bodies, to our own souls, to our own spirit. As I've shared with you before, the goal of this life is not expiring early. It is being here for as long as you are able to be here. To have lives that are internally rich, relationally healthy, and impactful to the world. So can we do that? Is it too much to ask to try to have lives that are internally rich, relationally healthy, and impactful to the planet? We should be trying to make ourselves whole while working for the world's wholeness. That tikkun olam, the idea from Jewish tradition that we are repairers of the earth, and we are. But we don't want to damage ourselves as we repair the earth. So how do we care for people outside our windows while still honoring the person in the mirror? How do we know when to be activists and when to be pacifists? When do we pause? When do we press on? Faced with the unfathomable pain around us and the pain within us, should we stay or should we go? And much of the answer comes from recognizing our internal condition and paying attention to the warning signs that tell us we are in a dangerous place. The warning signs are there if we choose to see them. Now, I have 2 teenagers. One of them is of driving age, has been for a while, and if you have been a parent or a caregiver in that position, you understand the terror of it, and you might understand a conversation that I had with my son. I said to him, how long has this light been on in the car? This was after tossing down the keys to a car I once owned but have gradually been evicted from. You understand? I said, how long has this light been on? And he said, not sure. So I said, for a few hours, a day, a couple of weeks, what? I was hoping my elevated volume and my more precise questions would cause him to share my urgency. And the unconcerned, barely audible reply came back, I don't know. Then, almost magically, in a kind of circle of life moment, I heard the voice of my dearly departed father burst forth from my mouth as I involuntarily launched into an impassioned and eloquent soliloquy on the seemingly self-explanatory purpose of warning lights and the inherent dangers of not responding to them. Instantly, I'd become part of a proud parenting lineage tracing back to the very genesis of automobile notification systems. And my frustration at my son's incredulity was tempered by the thought that maybe one day an older version of him might find himself similarly exasperated, fiercely interrogating an adolescent who is as laissez-faire and unbothered as he seems to be in this moment. And as I stormed out of the kitchen, I punctuated my diatribe with one final salvo. The warning lights are there for a reason. Pay attention to them. Then I pushed through the door and called the repair shop, hoping we could still save the car without me having to sell a kidney. But the same is true for the intricate and the delicate vehicles you and I are inhabiting on this meandering, unpredictable journey of being human. We ignore the warnings and alarms within us all the time. Physical fatigue comes, and instead of slowing down or cutting back or, God forbid, taking a nap, we down another cup of coffee or an energy drink, hoping to buy just enough of an artificial turbo boost to thrust us back into the day for a few more hours. Have you ever had someone recently say to you, "You look tired"? I have people say that to me. And if you're going to tell someone they look tired, you should be prepared to either offer them childcare, a weekend away at the beach, or some sort of dessert. People say, "You look tired," and I say, "No, that's just how I look now. I'm tired." So we feel this physical alarm and we ignore it. Or we feel a sustained anxiousness rising within us, and rather than attending to it by pausing to breathe or seeing a therapist or journaling the angst away, we double down. We bet on a slot machine refreshing of our social media feed to suddenly raise our emotional reserves and temporarily pull us out of our prolonged funk. Or perhaps our partner or our spouse points out our recent emotional unavailability, and we grow defensive or rationalize away their assessment in an attempt to avoid admitting that we've been sedated by a daily toxic cocktail of bad news, outrage addiction, and cultivated worry. I often ask people I lead retreats and workshops for, who is paying for your compassion? Who is paying for the amount of care that you give to the world? Because someone always pays for our expression of compassion. Sometimes we're paying for it physically. We're sacrificing rest. Or sometimes we're sacrificing mental health. Or simply time and effort. Sometimes we are paying physically and mentally and emotionally for how much we care about the world. But sometimes someone else is paying for it. Perhaps your relationships are suffering because of your activism or your emotional state due to all that you are trying to hold. So who is paying? Because often the people closest to us get the leftovers of us as we are working so hard to navigate this world. When it comes to engaging the brokenness around us, there's a fragile line between noble perseverance and careless hubris. And it's an hourly, almost momentary task to stay on the right side of that danger zone. As we go about the work of being people of compassion, which is why we're here, there are two wounds we need to constantly be mindful of. The wounds of the world and the wounds that we sustain attending to the wounds of the world. The former are usually much better at getting our attention than the latter, because the very empathy that enables us to notice the pain in our path makes us vulnerable to injury as we travel. It's because you care so deeply that you are wounded so deeply. This causes us to have proximity to other people's trauma, and we cannot enter those places unscathed. The best we can do is pay attention to the signs and mitigate the damage, and we're going to need to slow down in order to do that, because there is a stillness that is both necessary and elusive if we want to stay compassionate for the long haul. Buddhist Thich Nhat Hanh says, we do so much, we run so quickly, the situation is difficult, and many people say, don't just sit there, do something. But doing more things may make the situation worse. So you should say, don't just do something, sit there. Sit there, stop, be yourself, and begin from there. But we're so used to mistaking activity for productivity that Han's advice might feel counterintuitive at first. But yet slowing down our pace may be where the wisdom is. Sometimes with so much pain vying for our attention and the perpetual whirlwind of panic it may be generating within us, perhaps the most important thing you can do for your health and for the world that needs you, at least for a little while, is nothing. Because there is a subtraction or attrition or depletion to compassion. You are spending some of yourself on behalf of other people, whether time or energy or rest or resources or relational availability. Compassion can make you physically and emotionally ill because trauma is housed in our bodies. When we see pain around us, what we do is we see something on the exterior and we pull it within us. And that has to do something to us. And it's difficult to quantify the physical and emotional toll of the collective hell that we've all passed through in recent years. We know that we've experienced national fracture. We know that we have rising tribalism. And we know that we have been through a planetary public health crisis that we have all just gone on and forgotten about to a large degree. We had our lives irreparably interrupted, and we somehow are expected to just carry on and not realize that that has done some damage in us. Oh yeah, and then there's the everyday personal disasters of illness, grief, financial struggles, relational fractures. It is hard being human, isn't it? I say it all the time to the kids. Today is a day you've never been to, which means you have no idea how it's going to go, and you're really not prepared for it. So in this day that we have never been to, perhaps we can pause and rest a bit. Because trauma does reside in our bodies. It finds home in our physicality, but here's the challenge. Its impact is time released, which makes it kind of tricky to track. See, the effects on our systems often manifest a long time later, maybe months or years. They're shape-shifted into something else, a premature retirement or a stress-related heart episode or a marital collapse or a mental health emergency. We may not be able to run a direct tether from those things back to the tribalism, back to the elevated urgency or a planetary health crisis, but we should know that it's all connected. When you blow up at someone in your kitchen because they didn't put that dish in the dishwasher, it's not about the dish. It's about your frustration with communicating with someone. It's about the condition of your home. It's about you feeling insecure about how well you're being a parent or you're communicating with someone you love. Or it could be just about you really feeling lousy about yourself and the dish becomes the thing, but it's not the thing. Albert Einstein says, our task here must be to free ourselves by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures, even the ones who disagree with us, and the whole of nature and its beauty. That's a lot of work to embrace all of it. And speed and activity can mask all this. That's why the doing is so dangerous, because you can be doing beautiful things and it can be doing terrible work in you. So I want you to let the fatigue catch up to you today. Because there's a cost to compassion. There's a price tag to cultivating empathy in days when cruelty is trending. And many of us in this room, we are, and those online, hi, we are drifting into apathy. We're drifting into numbness. We have compassion fatigue. And I care about what you do in the world, but more than that, I care about who you are as you do that. The what of your life is important, but the how of your spirit is a priority as well. Because I often talk about the dehumanization of caregivers. Because we have a deep empathy, we often deny our need, our pain, our own fragility. We sacrifice our mental, emotional, spiritual, and relational health on the altar of our empathy. And I love these words from Maya Angelou. She says, every person needs to take one day away, a day in which one consciously separates the past from the future. Jobs, family, employers, and friends can't exist one day without any of us if our egos permit us to confess. They could exist eternally in our absence. Each person deserves a day away in which no problems are confronted, no solutions searched for. Each of us needs to withdraw from the cares which will not withdraw from us. Maya is asking us to take a day. I'm not going to start there because I don't think that's realistic for many of you, but you should take an hour. You could take a few minutes out of this day and to see your own humanity, to acknowledge your own fear, your own worry, your own regret. You've probably been watching TV and you've come across a commercial for one of the dozens of wonder drugs that claim to be able to help a very specific ailment, right? They bombard you with your favorite 70s song while people are gleefully dancing through a picturesque suburban town, soon followed by a whispered laundry list of the possible side effects, which in many cases sound more horrible than whatever you were taking the medicine for in the first place. That sounds great. I may get clearer skin, but I might also experience explosive diarrhea, bedwetting, and sudden death. Great. Glad my skin will be clear. And friends, living with empathy comes with side effects. So I'm going to say the side effects of Empathica. Take Empathica. Side effects may include sleeplessness, irritability, impatience, physical illness, emotional eating, addictive behavior, the inability to be present to people who love you, an obsession with social media, a fixation on how bad things are. I'm going to give you Empathica side effects again. Sleeplessness, irritability, impatience, physical eating, physical illness, emotional eating, addictive behavior, the inability to be present to people who love you, an obsession with social media, a fixation on how bad things are. Have you noticed any of the side effects in you? One or two maybe? I got them all. When I read that list, what do you recognize in you? Sleeplessness.
Emotional eating.
Emotional eating, yes. I'm glad Sally keeps me she's wonderful, amazing friend, gives me chocolate, because if not for chocolate, I may not be here, friends. What else? What are you noticing in you? irritability, impatience, inability to be present. I'm going to assume, what's that?
Exhaustion.
Exhaustion. Most of you are more well-adjusted than me, so maybe you're not struggling with any of these things. But if you notice any of them in you, that might be a sign that you need to pause instead of pressing on. Because there is this two-step dance of engaging and withdrawing, of the doing and the resting. I grew up in the Christian tradition, and there were all these stories in the Gospels where they can't find Jesus. They're like, Jesus, you have a 2:30 healing, where are you? And the scriptures would say Jesus is in a solitary place resting. And I'm thinking, well, Jesus is resting, maybe I should rest too. Maybe I am not stronger or wiser than Jesus. So that two-step dance of engaging and withdrawing is important, but you know what happens? Most of us are engaging, and never withdrawing, never going to the place of silence and solitude and prayer and meditation and nature and recalibrating ourselves. See, it's easy to focus on the wounds of the world because there are so many of them and because there are so many messages alerting us to them. We have in our phones a perpetual stream of notifications and updates and breaking news that we have grown conditioned to continually revisit, giving us a new menu of emergencies and atrocities screaming for our attention, predatory politicians, toxic systems, corrupt legislation, human rights atrocities, acts of treason, relational fractures, our own family and friends that we no longer understand, all of these things over and over and over, and our bodies are not equipped to carry that. Our systems are not designed to hold this much trauma, and yet our compassionate instincts make us want to try. We want to care for ourselves, but a combination of need out there and misplaced guilt and arrogance enable us to keep putting us off. And if you found yourself near or beyond your physical or mental capacity, you need to know that the political climate, the state of the planet, and difficult relationships aren't solely to blame. Sure, people and circumstances around us might be objectively horrible and certainly contribute to our ramshackle internal condition, but we have a say in the matter. In fact, we are the majority owners of our emotional state. We actually decide what we will be bothered by, frustrated by. No one else gets to choose that for us. And the seductive trap that empathetic human beings are lured into is finding our identity in how much we care, in the helping we do, in our ability to tough it out until the bottom drops out. Friends, yes, the world is terribly broken and it's a beautiful impulse to want to repair it, but we need to love ourselves enough to admit culpability in our own unwellness. We are not innocent bystanders in the erosion of our happiness or our internal tumult. In fact, many of our most lethal wounds are the direct result of our decision to give a damn to begin with. When we care enough about human beings through relationships or activism to enter into the perilous fray, we throw ourselves into the precarious spaces where the risk of injury is exponentially higher than had we not cared at all. In short, you could have chosen the road of the hardened heart and the averted eye, but you have not. You could have been one of those blissfully ignorant people who don't seem bothered at all by anything happening. You know them, you're jealous of them. You've chosen to see the brokenness, and so because of that, please be careful. Because you need to know something. No one else is going to prioritize your physical wellness, your mental health, your spiritual life, your relational vitality. No one is coming to save you. Even if you hold fast to the reality of a benevolent creator who hears your sighs of sorrows too deep for words and desires rest for your soul, it won't magically be uploaded into you. You're going to have to liberate yourself from the shackles of your own ego. You're going to need to be disciplined and create patterns that allow rest to come. Hope is not a foregone conclusion in days like these, and on its own, it's not even likely because there are so many people who seem so addled by fear and greed and anger. But hope is a brazen choice we make, even when circumstantial evidence makes that choice counterintuitive. So self-care and self-help, they're not just buzzwords or optional luxuries. They're essential means by which we keep our souls and sanity intact as we pass through a harrowing minefield of a day that we've never been to. And here's why this matters, because ultimately, you are the greatest personal resource you have in the fight for a more compassionate planet. Dead people make really lousy activists. I mean, that's about as inactive as you can get, right? And doing the work I do, I hear from far too many former empaths and ex-dam givers, lifetime optimists forced into early retirement by a decisive and cataclysmic health breakdown or from the slow, steady erosion of vigor. They were once full-throated and passionate revolutionaries, now rendered silent and invisible, all because they've been hyper-aware of the trauma around them and oblivious to the trauma within them. The fact that you're here tells me you're not quite there yet. Care for the world. The world needs your care. But see your own humanity. Honor that humanity as much as you honor the humanity of people who are assailed outside of you. Love the people outside your window, but love the person in the mirror, because you are as valuable to this world as any cause. So today, maybe you want to pause and then press on. So go in peace today, friends.